each other. Let's not give up on what we're trying to accomplish.
No, never that, never that, never that. We ain't giving up. We ain't giving up. I turned on all the lights, just a disclaimer. I turned on all the lights. That means there's a very high chance that some friends will fly in without request, and in which case I'll run off like a girl and wake up Ariel and he'll come and kill us. So I'm just preparing everyone for that.
With that very important announcement out of the way, now we can dive into what this is, which is the grand opening of these weekly podcasts or webinars in which we have free-flowing conversation about some of not just what GX has to offer, but how it's applicable to the open market, how someone that you might not consider to be a client of Global Exchange may actually find great practicality in something that we offer. But in order to provide context, I think Sharpen is going to zoom out a great deal to discuss kind of how money works or economy works or business works in many different scopes, and then drill that into a narrowed point of focus of how we offer something specific and how we as brokers can utilize that to actually provide a service to a much bigger market, and in that we are building our own network, our own incomes whenever transactions are ran through our brokerage. So I think it's going to be a very fun, interesting concept and a form of ongoing education and communication with both the field and getting inputs about educating you guys on various topics. As you can see, he's tingling to get started.
I was just trying to stretch out my hands, but yes. Sal, agency, correct?
Yes.
Yeah, because you were talking about the flow of money, so I'm like, wait, is this the wrong podcast? But yes, no, I just want to make sure I'm on the right page. Go ahead.
Yeah, so what we're going to be discussing is the virtual sales agency, which is a very innovative service that is provided not just to the crypto community, but I think something that is applicable to both online crypto companies, online non-crypto companies, actually predominantly online non-crypto companies, as well as can be extended to offline companies. And I think that's something that we're also going to be sharing today, whether you have an offline business, you know somebody that has an offline business, or you kind of are close to anyone that has an offline business, you might be able to provide one of these services, or at least better understand how to service them. And that's where our conversation today begins, is with the grand scope of what a VSA is, as well as the markets that VSA serves, as well as how you can begin to benefit. And this is going to come to you on a regular weekly basis with different aspects, different variables of the VSA, which again, as I foreshadow, VSA is going to be the most powerful way of you growing your own brokerage network without you having to get one customer at a time. You can use this very ingenious way to grab a huge chunk of your market at once. With that, I hand it off to Mr. Parakaspathy for what will be, I think, a very interesting conversation about the implications of a virtual sales force for any business running today.
Wow. Sal, it is quite impressive that that not only have you orchestrated this, but also made sure that everything has gone effectively. And I want to thank the people that are on the call. I want to apologize them in advance to any issues that we may occur. I want to very much look forward to the people that are going to watch this as well, and express my gratitude to them, but also express to them that by the time they're watching this, depending on when they get it, it could be in like this week, or it could be sometime very much in the future. This is a really powerful undertaking, as Sal has already outlined, and that the journey that they're going to be, the journey they're going to enter as a potential VSA is one that so many people have aspired to build, the structure to do so. So I want to just, place the perspective there. It is the first call. I'm sure we'll look back on it with great joy. So yeah, let's start with the things. First, I guess it's important to lay context as to what we're trying to do with the call, and then what we're going to try to do with the next couple of calls in terms of topics that are to be covered, but also the flow of maybe the growth of the call in terms of the topics that will be covered. So first and foremost, for those of you that are already in Global Exchange watching this, me and Sal are obviously working on a very zoomed in basis to try and develop mediums of proliferating the global exchange operating system. And the virtual sales agency is a very important mechanism, not just on a distribution front, which I'm sure we'll talk about in length over these calls, but also in terms of providing the very required infrastructure for people to be able to transform, first of all, get into the crypto space if they haven't, or just digitalize endeavors that they may have still kept analog. So, from a global exchange perspective, this is, is so quintessential. But from a non-global exchange perspective is really where we're going to take this for majority of this discussion, because although me and Sal are, representing and very much motivated to proliferate global exchange, I think the value of the virtual sales agency is that it does not exist with the company. It actually exists with the businesses that are becoming virtualized. And so I always like to think about the fact that when there's so many different types of businesses, or even just so many different types of stories that are about to engage in a product, and then wear that product and manifest it, that we have to be very cautious as it pertains to being able to make sure that they have all of the openness to be able to tell that story. So really, that's how we're gonna address it, and we'll go from there. And I'm sure Sal will do the job of just making sure that we spend enough time on both sides of the spectrum, what this means for people that are non-global exchange, looking into how they can grow their business, but also what it means for people within global exchange.
Now, before you zoom out of the implications of VSA, I believe this may be one of the first introductions for many people into VSA. So that terminology will be a lot more applicable to the rest of the story if they have a understanding of what VSA entails, and then zoom out.
Do you want me? So the way that I was going to go about it for this call, and I again, I wanted to be just upfront with the information so they know what to watch. But the way I wanted to do it for this call is talk about how, or maybe a better word is why VSA, and not why VSA for an individual. That's in the future. That probably does require much more information as it pertains to what makes it advantageous. I'm asking a more fundamental question, which I think is the obligation of every business owner to ask this question, which is virtual sales agency, and obviously I don't mean the literal product and the literal company deploying it. I'm talking about it as a concept, which is what we're going to get into. Was virtual sales agency inevitable? Was someone going to create it because it is the natural progression of commerce online? That's the big kind of question. Because if the question to that is yes, and I do think the answer to that question is yes in some very specific cases in other industries, that then we have a really good shot of filling in the blanks. And I think that's really what we're going to try to do with the details. Okay, so VSA short form stands for Virtual Sales Agency. The website virtualsales.agency, that's the kind of the domain. It is definitely a part of the Global Exchange family of apps. So that's just kind of logistics. Now let's talk about the nature of the product or the nature of the offering. I've been analyzing, and I definitely, whenever I say I'm speaking as I think it was Socrates that said, well, I'm a representation of everything that has been articulated up to this point. So I'm really speaking on tremendous amount of research that I didn't do, that I had the blessing of kind of just reading. But I've also had the really interesting vantage point. I'm sure Sal and many people on this call could relate to this, that I started my professional career after, number one, mobile phones became proliferated, and number two, after the financial crisis of 2009. And actually, it's funny enough because we might now be in the second kind of tier of that. But those two things are going to be pivotal points as to answer the question I laid out, is VSA inevitable? So let's rock into it. Businesses, obviously, and I'm going to make the assumption, Sal, for the entirety of the existence of VSA, that we don't have to convince people that businesses should go online in general. I think that's an assumption that we don't have to prove, i.e., a la Amazon, a la Shopify, a la eBay, a la, I don't know who you, Napster, wherever you want to take it, has already kind of proven that. We're not in the business of trying to make that has to be assumed. that must be assumed. So now let's talk about within the landscape of the word online. Where do businesses, small, medium enterprises is obviously what we're primarily regarding, but I'm sure it applies to some larger enterprises. Where do businesses create value? So quick little kind of history lesson. I'm sure the people that have been kind of observing the makeup and the evolution of the internet have kind of intuitively understood this, but maybe I'm going to lay it out in a way that might be fruitful and might be easy to digest and maybe potentially repeat, because that's my goal, is to kind of spread this message. The internet is the ultimate meritocracy until, of course, someone figures out how to use it, and in which case it becomes the ultimate oligarchy. And that happens, it happens at different speeds and different elements of the internet, but let's just talk about commerce, because we're in the business of selling things. And of course, selling things would also mean selling services, but I'm just saying things and kind of amalgamating those two things, products and services. So in the field of commerce, the internet opened up probably in the realm of about 96, 95, just an unprecedented opportunity, which means that for the first time, Joe or Schmo could compete with Walmart, which was the dominant commerce, the dominant retailer at the time. Obviously, like it's still the second most dominant retailer. That nobody understood. And actually a lot of people still don't understand that, but definitely in 95, nobody believed that was even real. And I don't think it was well articulated. It was just kind of people in the know knew that, because what it really democratized is delivery became somewhat democratized. So you don't need the capital expenditure to put a Walmart in every city in America. You can now be in one city and mobilize. That was obviously a really big force in the realm of getting this ability to compete at a scaled place. Payments, that was really done by Visa, MasterCard, all the credit card kind of providers made it so that people could buy stuff online without having the full, again, requirement for the huge capex that Walmart put out. I'm just using Walmart as an example. It applies to all retailers. So the last thing after payments and delivery was, and I think this was the thing that people missed and still sometimes miss, what the internet provides is almost unlimited discovery in a way that nobody can really compete with when it works properly. And so kind of what I mean by that is, say you walked into a Walmart, and I say you walk into Walmart today, you could be very intention oriented, saying I need to grab milk, and that could be the reason you walk in, or you can be really unintention oriented, and you could be drawn in by maybe a coupon, or maybe drawn in because someone else walked you in there, or drawn in just because it's weekly shopping, generally speaking. And so whatever degree you take, because of the fact that you're in there in person, which is already a huge accomplishment that you drove there and kind of had the ability to do that. But let's say now you're in there, you have a finite amount of discovery consumption. Maybe that's not the proper word, but I'm going to explain a little bit. Meaning, how many products could you really look at in a Walmart? Like, and as we know that you have to pick them up and you have to look into them, whether it's whether food, cleaning, whatever it is, clothes. How many could you really look at? How much can you really kind of be barraged by Walmart? They can't literally throw things at you, because it's that'd be painful. And they can do their best to put up signs and make distort your decision making ability by things like that. But it's at best a subconscious cognitive play. Definitely has they have no pull in terms of unlimited discovery. And then you have the issue of time. You only have so much time in the store. It's going to close at some point. Even if you don't have to leave, they're going to kick you out. These things matter. Amazon, let's just use them, but other commerce, online retailers figure this out. Like, holy smokes, within 1 hour, someone could look at how many products on Amazon. I mean, within 5 minutes, how many products would you look at on Amazon, right? There's no, even if you just made it if you reduced it, could you pick up that many products? Like, let's say you're just imagine like just shopping for clothes, the degree to which you can click and analyze, you couldn't even pick up that many clothes if it was laid in front of you like that, let alone analyze the price and the size and things like that. So that right there, because Walmart had distribution, Walmart had credit cards as well. So it's not like those two things were advantages over offline retail. Those two things kind of just became available to more people that are now Walmart. But the one thing that was online retail that offline retail never could even dream of doing, and to this day can't dream of doing, is make it so that the average consumer is able to have super consumption powers. Maybe that's a way to look at it. And of course, people, we're digesting creatures. When we want to consume, we don't stop. There's no stopping to our consumption. Money may be a stopping point, but not that much. You'll still find a way to kind of consume beyond even how much money you have. So, and if you give someone that ability, they're going to go bananas. All right. So Amazon, I think, stumbled their way into that. And other companies, eBay for sure, stumbled their way into that, being like, holy smokes, like, people are really curious about all of the things they can buy. And that is not that obvious of an assumption to make. Definitely the offline retailers couldn't or wouldn't have made that. So now fast forward. So you had this meritocracy, you had some companies figure that out. How long did it take? I would say maybe because delivery and logistics of products still took some time to develop. By 2005, it was over. And I'm not saying that there cannot be another, entry into the space. Shopify came after 2005, Flipkart came after 2005. So I mean, obviously, companies can always come and and disrupt to some degree. But what can't be changed fundamentally is the economies of scale that the people that kind of figured this out first thought. And now the biggest and best manifestation is Amazon. Okay, and that's what I meant is very quickly the internet transforms from a democracy because everyone, when Amazon was started, had the equivalent chance to be that. It's unparalleled in the analog world. There is just no chance. If you were Sam Walton with $1 billion versus Sam Walton with no money, the Sam Walton with $1 billion, all externals being equal, would win because it's a capex business when you're analog. Not the case with analog. But the real factor in the online world is timing. You have to get there first when nobody else kind of thinks about it, and that's Amazon. Kudos to them. Perfect. Now we have laid the landscape coming into, I think where the VSA starts to emerge. So now you look at it like, wow, the internet is clearly the best place to sell stuff. That's not even debatable. It's clearly the best place to convince people to buy things they never even thought they should or could or think about buying, because you have this kind of consumption, superimposition powers. And then as obviously the best advertising medium. And so then develops the kind of the race to the internet, because the winners are decided, right? Like Michael Phelps, Usain Bolt, they're gone. So now we're really just talking about not getting left behind. And that's really where we are right now. We're now in the business of not getting annihilated, not being the guy, not being the horseshoe salesman in 1930. Figuring out kind of how do we get into, or how do we help businesses get into this very, the promised land, and not do the same things that would lead them to a peril, which I see a lot of businesses doing when they enter online, because what they're really doing is trying to copy and paste what Amazon did in 1996. Well, unfortunately, it's no longer 1996, and that changes a lot of things. So you have to shape your ability. And the closest thing maybe to a VSA, and I don't think I'm only saying close because you haven't learned about VSA yet. I mean, so once you learn about it, you understand how many nuances there are that make it completely different. But maybe the closest thing to VSA is something like a Shopify, which says that, okay, we don't really want to be kind of like Amazon or Walmart. We're going to make everyone else into Amazon or Walmart by giving them just the get starter pack. Let's look at it like that, right? We'll get your store set up. We'll get blah, blah, blah. We'll get all this stuff set up so that you can sell shoes and whatnot. Okay, that's great, because that now allows you to not worry about the basic infrastructure, online infrastructure, delivery infrastructure that Amazon put into place. That's obviously a competitive advantage. But the issue with that, even there, is that it's kind of like a crude form of retail, because like Shopify, probably, I don't know the numbers. Let's say they have 500,000 customers. So 500,000 customers, let's say they broadly cover about, 50 types of businesses, shoes and things like that. Just line them up. And if you go to Shopify, so I'm sure they'll give you this data. So that essentially means, 10,000 customers, if my math is not correct, 10,000 businesses using Shopify for similar particular reasons. At that point, and that's still very small, I think Shopify has huge room to grow, but at that point, it's like everyone now has the same thing. Everyone has the storefront, everyone has the payments module, everyone has the delivery mechanisms that Shopify provides, and that's great that they do that, because we wouldn't have even got to 10,000 per industry if it wasn't for them. But now you're one of 10,000, and here, now you're basically competing again with Amazon, because it's now just economies of scale, because now all of you guys have it. And tell me why I would rather come to your store versus Amazon, for example, or even if I did come to your store, now I still have 9,999, and that's still, again, very small. It's going to get into millions of the same type of online businesses being perpetuated. Perfect. Enter the first feature, first kind of problem VSA solves. The first problem VSA solves is it does not treat its, I don't think businesses can think of themselves as online stores. And that was, I think, the first thing. That's why it's not called virtual stores or virtual commerce or something like that, because I think the reality of the circumstance transpired to be that, okay, because selling shoes is now so easy, a la Shopify does almost everything for you, you now really just need to get the shoe, and they'll even probably help on that front, and the guy will get it. So now it's almost like every merchant, and every business owner is a merchant to some degree, every merchant has to forget about almost all the principles of selling retail, like selling things that they're very much accustomed to, online and offline, because you're no longer that. You're no longer someone who's setting up, forget about a physical store, even an online store, because that's almost done for you. And even we're gonna do it for you, but the key thing is figuring out where you have a difference, where you can actually carve out your market. And that is what underpins the name virtual sales agency, because I don't think whether you're selling, pasta, shoes, consulting services, or some very high technical prototype of the next iPhone or something like that, I don't think you're actually in this, what you think of like a store business. You're not in commerce. You're actually very much in building networks, fundamentally functioning like a sales network. And the thing with that is an abstracted concept, much more abstract than a store. And that's why I also think virtual sales agency is confusing. It'll always kind of be confusing, because what does that actually even mean? What it kind of means is your product is now almost fundamentally automated, whether it's online or offline, because the distribution should be automated. Now you're developing the highest layer of value. And the highest layer of value is, this is the most liberating thing I hope you can hear. The highest layer of value cannot really be duplicated, because it's not a capital thing. It really has nothing to do with any correlation. I guess if you try and fail enough, you might figure it out just by trial and error. But in terms of calculus, it's very hard. And I'll give you an example. What I mean by that is, everybody likes fast delivery. So if you're selling shoes, one person has fast delivery, the other person doesn't, the guy that has fast delivery wins. But now what if both people have fast delivery? Okay, well now let's go to the next thing. Let's say one guy has all the payment options and the other guy only accepts pigeons carrying dollars. Well, clearly this guy's gonna win because he has more versatility in his payment acceptance. Well, now let's say everybody has that. And you just kind of work up kind of the things that built competitive advantages in the past and say, whoa. These are no longer competitive advantages. Everybody kind of has them. And as soon as you go online, you're no longer one of the 10 coffee shops in Brooklyn. You are now, there's no Brooklyn. It's just one of the millions of coffee shops online. And so the competition actually gets more fierce. And coffee shop's not a good example because it's still, you gotta be hot, but you get my point. The highest layer of value is completely business to business. I mean, business to business, meaning like it differs business to business, and nobody can kind of predict what it is. And I'll use two brands. I mean, one is the one that's like the one I'm going to keep referring to throughout these processes because they inspire me quite a bit. Is Starbucks. Obviously, Starbucks has colossal retail infrastructure, but let's just take it all the way back. And if you don't know kind of the evolution of Starbucks, I'm not going to bore you with that. I'll do that another time. But let me just make it very simple, right? That business, if you looked at it just one store, if there was a person that opened up in your neighborhood, what was Starbucks now? It makes no sense what he's trying to do. It's overpriced coffee. It's He's speaking in words you've never heard before. He doesn't use kind of typical normal coffee terminology. He believes people will hang out for hours and hours and hours, and America doesn't do that. No country does that. They just wake up in the morning, get their coffee, and run to work. I mean, who wants to sit in a coffee store? I mean, these are all such weird paradoxes, right? The tables are mad small. None of it makes really much sense. But that worked. And then of course it's scaled. I mean, there's a scaling issue, but we hope to take care of that for you. But what we can't take care of for you is the like why that worked. And what I think is so beautiful is that with all small and medium businesses, online business, well, there is some random element like that that makes it attractive. You know, maybe that's something that you do for your customer that nobody else does. Maybe that's a branding thing that you figured out. Maybe that's a priority. Maybe you're investing in a cause that the customer likes. That's really duplicatable. I mean, it's not worth to duplicate that because you duplicate it's probably going to be wrong. It's not going to work for you. It's going to work for that person. Okay, so the goal of the VSA is to get entrepreneurs to only think about that, and then hopefully establish a set of software products that allow them to kind of reinvest and hit that element of their business. Because we are assuming all of the other things are taken care of. We plan to take care of them, that's baked into the product line, but even if we don't, someone else will take care of them. And so that lays out the framework of what it is that we're trying to capture, what it is that we're trying to accomplish. It is simply, in my opinion, the only way that you're going to create differentiation online. Because as I explained right now, the alternatives are pretty dire. You will have to go online to avoid being just analog. And then when you go online, you'll get annihilated, or worse, you'll be irrelevant. And being irrelevant online is not like being irrelevant in your high school. Being irrelevant online means nobody will actually ever find you because the sheer volume of stuff is colossal. There's no chance of anything bumping into you. And then you'll spend money to do that. And I'll let Sal interject back into here because the next stream I have is talking about the evolution of software products such as MailChimp, such as these kind of products that help businesses do one element of their thing and how they work within the construct I laid out.
So to summarize, and tell me if I have this correct, you have, I think, I think we all have a clear understanding that the world is moving towards online business, thus e-commerce, and whether that be a product or service or any sort of distribution model, you want to make sure that you have access to the world. And as you said, just as someone can go into a store and only view a certain amount of product services, only have the capacity to see so many advertisements, even if they are watching advertisements 24/7, they're still confined by the physicality of either looking through the stores, but online you can have them browse a lot easier and a lot more consumption. Now, if you take your business online, which most people are beginning to realize that if they're not already extinct, they're also realizing that once they're in the space, sure, there's some upsides to it, but there's also global competition that you become one of not a few hundred or a few thousand of your local community. You become one of millions in a global economy. And that's where you have to have competitive advantage. And that's where I think the specializing of certain businesses, I like what you said about the B2B, it's the businesses that offer specific competitive advantages to businesses that will thrive. And I think that's where we have to offer you, the broker, as well as offer the actual business to utilize to get that competitive advantage that doesn't yet exist in the market.
Thank you. I mean, I think that summarizes it quite well. I would just add there that the element of advantage is to be determined by the business. The goal is to drag that out of them very quickly so that they don't waste time not thinking about that, and then provide them tools to elaborate on it. So now let me fulfill my promise. So coming back to the narrative here, now we emerge and we emerge, let's say, like iPhone era, like 2007, 2008, 2009, 2010. And here there is something really interesting that happens, because it's like I mean, it kind of not really, it's makes a lot of sense in hindsight, but at the time I'm sure it was really interesting, which is small amounts of businesses start to go online and start to DIY, right? Like, oh, let's try to build a website. Let's try to do this. Let's try to do this. Obviously, these are very much risk takers because they're so ahead of the curve. So other companies that are not so risk taking and analyze this and they say, oh my goodness, we need to build services for these people to be able to increase their business. So now you're like essentially looking at, I would say, SME B2B type of services for software products, and I'll go through the famous ones. I'm sure you guys know about them, but the sheer fact that these even became a thing is just mind-blowing, right? So let's just take a very common one, MailChimp. I think almost all business owners are exposed to some type of email marketing. MailChimp obviously is the authoritative leader in that. What does MailChimp do? I mean, kudos to them because they've been able to monetize this. It's incredible, which they help you link, oh, I think we have a wire transfer question.
Okay.
That's like amazing. But Sal, just respond to him. That's shout out to the wire transfers. Coming back to it, what does MailChimp do? MailChimp essentially allows you to create lists of emails that you need to go out and procure. They give you a simple tool to be able to collect the list, to monitor the list, and then to be able to send emails continuously on an automatic basis to these people. Great. Are those things that you can do in your email server if you are technically savvy enough? Of course they are. Is the majority of the world technically savvy? Of course they're not. So I mean, that makes sense there. What's really interesting is how many people need this service, because no normal user of the internet needs this service, obviously, because they're not doing any type of email marketing user to user. It's kind of only businesses that are targeting users. And so here, the astonishing thing is that how many people came to realize that this became a fundamental utility. And it is. I mean, they probably have over 1 million customers, well over 1 million customers. So that's just one example. I have a list here of all of the things that are sold to businesses. I'll pull it up because obviously we've been analyzing that for a while.
I think that is smart, selling business to business software because a multitude of reasons. And I'm thinking in terms of brokers because those are the people that I rep. But think about it this way: when you sell a customer, it might be a much more of a smaller transaction. Even if they buy a large amount of OTC, it's a smaller one-time transaction. But businesses need ongoing services that are high margin and high ticket. And that's something that VSA is providing to all brokers. So if you wanted to earn the kinds of big money that are, I think, going to allow many people to look at GX as a long-term possibility of, hey, I get to actually make some serious money with this. Perhaps it's worth putting more effort, energy, finances behind this to actually scale this up. That's what I think VSA is going to allow you to do. Whereas the OTC side, whereas the microtransactions were meant to allow you to provide the facilities of onboarding a lot of people into the world of crypto for whatever agenda that you may already have and get something as opposed to nothing. And then once you have that customer base, you can offer them different services like VSA, and that's where they get tremendous amount of value and you make tremendous amount of commissions and they can run tremendous amount of transactions, and that's where you really get to blossom. And so we have kind of a low ticket entry and then offer high ticket value for those that are in that space of running their own business or wanting to launch something of their own. We provide the facilities to do so, and that greatly comes back to benefiting all the brokers.
You're so practical.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
No, I like it. I mean, as long as it makes sense. Yeah, as long as you're making it make sense in terms of, of course, what you're saying makes sense in isolation. That's the thing, right? So, but I think people will get it. I don't know if you can see my screen.
Yeah, we're good.
The OneNote, yeah. Okay, look at this is what I've analyzed as kind of the most essential software. I mean, there's hundreds more, there's thousands more, but in terms of even categories of what a small business owner can buy online. And they're being bought. I mean, these businesses are obviously thriving, but these ones I think are becoming mandatory. Some type of calling infrastructure that's based online. That's what I put as Just Call, which is essentially like, I mean, I guess you could use WhatsApp or Facebook Messenger, but something a little bit more scalable. Because why would you have a landline when you could just use VoIP if that, the infrastructure is there for that? Some type of direct advertising generator. some type of website creator, obviously a CRM, some project management software, HR management software to manage your employees, payment processing, email marketing, structured ways of invoicing people, hosting all of this stuff on the internet, internal company messaging, some type of video calling. I guess that could be tying into the normal calling if you don't need video calling. Storage is, fundamental hard drives, cloud storage for all of this, and then design structures for, of course, your products, but also even just the way that you think about stuff. So just create kind of what you used to do on a whiteboard in terms of conceptualization. So these are just, again, like I said, the 14 I just kind of thought they were most important, and that's subjective opinion. I'm just putting it out there that there are thousands of companies that all they do is serve one element of one of these things, right? And those companies have made tremendous amounts of money. Some of them, obviously, Trello, MailChimp, et cetera, which is unbelievable. So what does that show you? That shows you, number one, many people are DIY online, because the opposite of being DIY online is just being an Amazon reseller or a Shopify merchant. That's fine. Both are good options, but we just need to understand the scale of how many people are trying to do this themselves. And then number two, and this I think is the kind of more direct opportunity for us, is, whatever they're paying for this is complete horseshit. Even if I put that into just purely non-sharp hand terms, like non-radicalized pricing measures, because I'm more of I'd like to think that there are more innovative ways of pricing things that we price right now. But even if you looked at it like any of these things, they're going to start at $10 a month per user. So if you have 5 employees, that's $50 a month, whatever it is. And some of them get much more expensive than that, and some of them are right around that age. I don't think much are cheaper than $10 a month per user. So first and foremost, let's talk about cost of production for this is nothing, because once you build the software, especially something really simple like a MailChimp, not discrediting the company and what they've been able to do in terms of getting customers, I'm just discrediting the tech complexity of their offering. If you're looking at something like that, it's a one-time build. You might have to update it a couple times, but that thing hasn't changed much in 10 years, and they don't really need to, because the core function is so useful, I guess. But really what we're talking about, the cost of production for this is nothing. They could give it away for $1 a month. There's nothing stopping them. Number two, when you consume it, you're consuming it inefficiently, because it's like, are you going to prioritize HR software and not prioritize, for example, project management software? You kind of now need to get both, and maybe you don't have enough money to get both. Maybe you don't even know what a project management software is. It's going to be inefficient the way you consume it, because you're A, who the hell understands all of this? And B, even if you did understand it, do you have this budget that can monitor all of this? And then how do you actually monitor the way that these are benefiting your business? What are the analytics that say MailChimp was a good investment for you? What is it that say these things? You have none of that thing. You're shooting, what is it? You're shooting in the dark here. And so, again, none of this changed anything. Millions of customers, hundreds of millions of dollars generated. And so, there's a tremendous, as Sal said, a fundamental hunger for these products. So that's easy to disrupt. Even on a price point, or even on anything, it's easy to disrupt. Many people have disrupted on a price point too, but I'm saying you can possibly give it away for free. We're not going to, but I'm just giving you the analogy. And then on the left-hand side, you have the majority of people haven't even started to use these yet. You have these offerings, as well as, let's say, the Shopify, Amazon reseller offerings, are not the greatest. In different reasons, they are good, and different reasons they're not. And people are consuming them, there's a large amount of traction, while online commerce in general is still only 14, 15% of daily commerce in the United States. And I would say the United States probably ahead of some other countries. So what we're now saying is, not only are these things working now, undeterred, they're going to blossom, and they're just going to blossom in an unprecedented fashion. The victim here, and I'm not saying that they're victimizers, because I don't believe that. I think they think that they're selling something important, but the victims here are going to be the small businesses that think, because they consume all of the software or become a Shopify merchant, that they have differentiation in the marketplace. Clearly that's not the case, because it's not like these are exclusive things. And like you said, they're becoming cheaper and everything like that. So it's almost like saying, it was like Uber saying, or any app that became successful, let's just say Uber saying, we're going to be successful because we're an app, or because we're on the App Store. Okay, well, that's not a good definition for success, because there's a tremendous amount of apps on the App Store. So that's almost the analogy there, right? It's prolific in that sense. Perfect. Now tie in what I said. Do any of these products allow you to to express the high level differentiation thing that I tried to explain earlier. No, these let you conduct very systematic processes that everyone else is also conducting, just kind of the way everyone else is conducting them. And the most terrifying example of that is that nobody uses MailChimp differently. You can't. It's built in a way you can't. You can put different content, and potentially someone's strategy is a little bit better than the others, but when there's that many, like, it's built for everybody, it can't be that much, you can't have the greatest MailChimp strategy and someone else is just abysmal, because MailChimp's job is to kind of make sure that actually can't even happen, because they should really be importing and cross-subsidizing there. So, okay, this is so fascinating when you lay it out like this. So what's the solution, or what's our solution? Now let me get to the point why we think we have the great solution. Number one, you need to build a sales network. What you define as a sales network is going to be discussed over the next 1,000 podcasts, I think, because it could be defined as an actual network of people selling your product. It can be defined as a network of customers that are consuming your product, right? That you're selling to them. It can be defined as people that are selling you products that maybe you need for your you need to consume that product in order to resell your product, whatever it could be. So I'm not here to define that yet, but you need that. That's going to be your competitive advantage. There's no question about that. The size of that network, Sal has a lot more experience on it. I'd love for Sal to maybe do a full agency podcast just on kind of conventional digital marketing knowledge, right? And you can say like email is the greatest documented version of that, but I know banner ads and everything else is also Facebook now, and everything is included in there. But there's one thing that I remember learning after I read .com Secrets, which is that, and I think everyone should read this book just because it is like the predecessor to everything we're saying, is that the only thing that matters when selling online is the size of your list. There's the size of your list determines everything. Like the size, it's like if you have a list of 100 people, what does it mean by list? It literally means email list. He literally means that. Email list, SMS list, okay, let's just say it's one of those two. He means that you will never make more money than the size of your list. No, not a dollar to dollar, whatever it is, but some relation there. And that's fascinating, because basically what he's saying, and I think at the .com Secrets era, that era of marketing, which still persists, but it's definitely on its tail end, is saying you need an email list because you can't grab people off the streets. Like this is the digital version of grabbing people off the streets. But they had so much abundance because the way that people opened emails back then, and the way that email was such a novel thing, it became a new thing, that just having the email list is great enough to kind of get to promised land. And so he was completely correct. Like if you had a 1 million person email list in 2000 and anything before I think 2014, you're rich. Like you're 2-3 steps away from being very rich, right? And that worked like magic, and to some degree now it still does work. Like the numbers would have to get much bigger because you have the changes in email consumption, and I think that change is important. So now look at the understanding here. How many online businesses have a list? Very few. And even if you do, how capable are you with engaging with that list? So let's say you're the most sophisticated, Salcon type of digitalpreneur. So you have an email list, it's with MailChimp, you know how to configure it, you know how to do all of that stuff. And yet you still have the limitations of engaging with that list. And you're by far well ahead of everybody else, but you still have tremendous limitations. So where do you go from here? And how do you evolve this idea of a list? The sales network, I think, is really the evolution of the idea of the list. I think they are one and the same. The sales network, the sales agency, is a way to create a dynamically engageable list. It's dynamic because we don't predefine it. You define it. It could be you're an affiliate-driven company. It could be you're a peer-to-peer-driven company. It could be that you're just a direct-to-consumer-driven company. It could be something where your company is still geographically important because you can order online, come pick up in store, whatever it is. That becomes dynamic. Number two, the methods of engagement, based on what I'm about to reveal as the first feature, the first actual solution, technical solution to this, are going to become very dynamic. Perfect. You're number one MailChimp guy, you're killing the game, you have a big email list. what can't you do? You have no data on your customers except their email interactions. And if MailChimp gives you that, you'll have that. Number two, you have no control to communicate with them outside of email, of course, unless you ask them for their phone number. Now you have to start phone list, et cetera, et cetera. Number three, and this is the biggest thing, you have no data on the way your customers behave when they are interacting with your product. So that could be the way, how many clicks on a website, that could be time spent on a website, that could be, whatever. It could be where the IP is coming from. It's just a bunch of data, right? And really irrelevant, actually, if you think about it in aggregate. It's only relevant when you talk about per person. So now, that's not something that I think the conventional idea of a list, digital list, captures. The companies that have captured that are the companies that were the first winners. Amazon and eBay, is because what they did is they said, fuck all this list. Excuse my language, I'm so sorry. This might end up becoming a more vulgar podcast, but they said, forget all this creating lists. We need to not just create a list, but then we need to attach user profiles, and we need to spy to some incredible degree to derive analytics so that we can have the slightest edge competitor over eBay or over the next big e-commerce play. And so when you think about it from that perspective, you are now you need that. It was before, having an email list, I guess, was sufficient. And some people don't, that's why it's still sufficient. What now has to be the case is you must have a database of users. You must have a database of their information, whatever information you think you can grab from them. And number three, you must have a database of the way they interact when they are on your website or whatever it is that you're using to distribute. Customer data, capturing it, owning it. Perfect. Clearly, none of these companies are in the business of providing that because they are tools. They're not solutions. They're tools. They're not solutions. I'll tell you the big difference between a tool and a solution. To me, a keyboard, like a computer keyboard, is a tool and a solution because I can do magic with that. But if you give me some cooking utensil, and I couldn't even think of one beyond spoon and fork, but if you give me a cooking utensil, that is a tool. For me, even it's still a tool, but it's not a solution for me because I know how to use that thing at all in a productive fashion. All of these are great tools for everybody. Indifferent, they're a tool, but they're not solutions for most people. And that's where, when you combine those things that I just summarized, the VSA emerges. It emerges because off the cuff, we give you all of this, or at the beginning, we'll let you integrate this and then hopefully migrate to our native software version of these. But that's really not important because we don't really care about tools. There are enough tools. What we care about is helping a bunch of people that may or may not have tools deploy that in a solution. And the one factor of that solution that we've already concluded on this first podcast is it must capture, retain, and be able to analyze customer data in a way that obviously no, I think, conventional digital mechanism allows unless you built it from scratch a la Amazon. So that's the first proposition of VSA, is that the tools will work. We will now build you the experience that allows your business to capture, retain, and analyze that data. The literal manifestation of that is our, let's call it, marketplace product. And our marketplace product is virtual sales agency. Solutions marketplace. So inside of a marketplace, this, by the way, this looks very similar to what you would consider to be like a Shopify environment, a Shopify store. So we're giving you a storefront. You can list your products there, you can list your services there, and then people engage with it. Okay, the reason it's different, and I guess this is the most practical thing I've said today. I promise to end always with some practical information, right? Unless, of course, mans don't want that. Well, the streets will decide, I guess, as we roll this out.
Which, by the way, you have about 6 minutes. 5 minutes.
Honestly, that's probably all I need to wrap it up. unless there's questions, but I think we'll refrain from that today. I'm opening up one of the VSAs. I'd like to open up my GX too if I knew how to get there. MyGX.io. There we go.
I hope everyone got the point of a tool versus a solution, whereas one is a piece that you have to kind of put together with other pieces. A solution is an integrated whole kind of A to Z done in one platform where you can just utilize that one platform for all of your needs to run your operation. And that is what VSA offers. So whereas some of the operations are, first of all, not even as customizable as they are in the VSA, but they might be scattered, they might require all this integration, and people might face such a inertia of getting started that they may not get started. So this kind of one step is all the steps together. It's like getting into an elevator versus climbing each stair one step at a time, and trying to figure out what additional pieces you might need. This encompasses all of them together.
Perfect. No, I mean it's absolutely that. And if you want to go conspiratorial there, you say that companies that sell solutions companies that sell tools never want you to solve the problem. You'll not probably need that tool anymore. So that's not wrong. It's just kind of the lack of education in the marketplace will determine that. So, all right. So these are two examples of existing kind of marketplaces that some of our clients are using. One actually is like really interesting. This one, MyGX, they kind of asked to use our name and made it MyGX, which is quite an honor, I guess. Look at their marketplace. This is an example of the marketplace, is what I mean. They, welcome to your marketplace, and they're selling a bunch of kind of ephemeral financial products. They're not even selling things. They're selling like opportunities and concepts and services, and financial products are as ephemeral as it gets, I guess. So the way that it lays out is they chose the design, and the VSA made it so that they can use it, the customers can analyze the 4 products. If you had 100 products, there'll be 100 products. And so right now we've deployed this first version of kind of the marketplace. Our goal is to develop this. Again, we are not prizing ourselves in kind of the nuances that it pertains to some of the deployment of this, although we will be the best at that. There's no question about that. We will be the best. But that's not even the point. The point isn't the fact that, this is the greatest e-commerce solution ever. That we would fail if we were that. What this is showing is something that I think no one has picked up, even that I'm on this website, is that I can't actually get into here until I log in. And so really, we're not giving you a storefront. We're giving you a application, web-based, mobile-based, doesn't really matter, that allows you to capture customers and then give them the barrage of things that you want to sell them. So that sounds like Amazon. It sounds like exactly what Amazon does for themselves. It does not sound like what Amazon does for other people. It's definitely not what Amazon does for its resellers or the people that are have Amazon stores, because guess what? All of the people that have Amazon stores are making their customers go to Amazon.com. That's great. It's brand recognition. I get it. But what data? First of all, Amazon has the data, but even if they parlay that data, what control do you have over your customers' data? None. And so let's reverse engineer, because we're talking to businesses here. You shouldn't get excited as to how beautiful this is for your customer, although you should, in terms of being able to get customers. What you're now really thinking is, as soon as they land on this page and start hitting this first letter, everything is being recorded. Every single thing is being recorded. And you, of course, have all their information because they've already made an account. That's a given. That's like, I know most people don't even have that, but that's like, that's not enough anymore. You now need to have that data, so that database of users, that's your users, not anybody else's users, and then keep track of everything they're doing. Only with that can you many things, and that's a different conversation. Change the way that you sell things so that it works, so you have actual analytics to change the way you sell things. Number 2, figure out what pricing makes sense to different markets. I mean, the amount of things you can do is unbelievable. But the key thing is you can actually build relationships using that data. And that's the other 2 elements of the VSA, the other solution components of the VSA, the affiliate product, the affiliate line, and then the wallet circumstances, the payments. I'm not going to go into that today, but I just wanted to kind of cover that. I didn't even go into properly the marketplace. I didn't think that was the objective. The objective is to show what led to the requirement for a marketplace.
And
and sorry, I just want to say one sentence and then it's all yours. You are not, or nobody is selling anything online. Sorry, you're no longer, and you're not selling things. You must develop experiences that you control for your customer. Because selling things, which used to be a big deal, is now very easy to do. And when something becomes very easy to do, apart from the incredible amount of competition, there's no value in reinvesting in that. There's only now value in creating unique experiences. And I think the predicate, the antecedent for those unique experiences is a customer database that you control.
And I think information is the new digital gold rush, as cryptocurrency is as well. And the more data you can have on your clients, the more that you can tailor your sales proposition, your products and services to serve that client base. To summarize this very first of the agency podcast, I wanted you guys to understand, even if pieces of this puzzle, that it is much grander than you may realize, that it serves to empower the business owners that are either offline or online, that are trying to make something of their business and are trying to get a competitive advantage, now realizing, oh my gosh, there's like 1,000 other of these businesses that I'm seeing ads compete against. How am I going to stand out, or how am I going to build a better relationship with my customer base so that I can offer a much higher product or service and thus actually generate more revenue with the same number of customers? And that is the tipping point of what VSA does, is first of all provide the analytics for you to dive deep with your client base and create higher levels of specificities for them. And if you cannot think of your own application as of right now, like, hey, I'm just an online marketer, I'm just someone that pushes other people's products, as we begin to pry open the possibilities and the world of opportunities that the VSA offers, you're going to actually either find creative ways to do what you're already doing, but much more intelligently, and get a greater return, greater profit margins than what you're doing right now, or be inspired to actually say, hey, you know what, this actually decreases the threshold of me actually going from the affiliate to actually the owner of your own company and offering a physical product or digital product that you might have also white labeled. Realize that as you begin to understand this, you'll begin to see that either you can offer this service to other businesses online or offline, or you may say, hey, I can see that I can white label this VSA, I can white label another product or service, I can combine this together, and then I can do the marketing that I'm already doing for other companies. I speak in terms of marketing because that's where I stem from. And in the end, you can actually realize that you will go from a marketer to someone that has their own brand that you're building with the same effort. And that's what I mean, getting a lot more ROI out of the same output that you're already putting in there. And so the applications are both for other people that you may know, as well as slowly as this becomes more and more marinated in your mind, you will find ways to actually implement this, so much so that as I begin to learn more and more about the possibilities of this, I'm like, wait, instead of just marketing this, I should probably have a VSA of my own, of some sort of service that I can offer, because it really changes your perception as a digital marketer, as an online entrepreneur, as an offline entrepreneur, and really provide a lot of the competitive advantages that other people do not have. And so,
yeah, I mean, I hope that when I'm talking, I'm directly talking to the business owner or potential business owner, that people that are not selling things right now, like selling, that are not prospective kind of business owners, just realize how easy this is to sell to business owners.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, I just hope that was obvious. I apologize if it wasn't. We'll make an entire kind of segment on that, but that becomes like, we'll put it like this, if you're even considering what Sal just said, I mean, you're going to make a fortune off of this, because if you're considering as a marketer to transform into a business owner, this is a hell of a product. So you should be able to sell a boatload of it just on that front. Like, think about the people that are already struggling. You know, we're gonna take these webinars, we're gonna take this podcast and really be like analytical, tactical, as we especially get into past the first 2-3. We're gonna talk about the price differences between each of these solutions, and then talk about how they compare to the market. Like, it's a no-brainer when it comes to price, efficiency, simplicity. I mean, that's a given. So if you're just pure like a software salesperson, this is going to be the easiest thing to sell. But then tying it into like the idea of like helping people get businesses more efficient, starting businesses, things like that. So you're kind of more of a conceptual salesperson, marketer. Then is a no-brainer. And then finally tying it to the fact that really this is now a product that even you can use. By the time you set up your own VSA, you should have sold 50, because like, you know what I mean? Like it's so brain-numbingly practical. And then on top of the practicality lies the real beauty, which is what you will instill, which is how do you take a VSA and then help that person get empowered?
Yeah, well, and just to keep in mind a few bullet points as we conclude today, which is VSA opens up a whole new world of possibilities for brokers as well as business owners, and for especially brokers that are trying to get customers. This will ignite your business in. It's like instead of hunting for mouses, you're hunting for a elephant. That of course, one capturing of a VSA client opens up so many revenues just in that one client, and we're going to discuss those in the future ones. I do want to make sure that you guys are aware that we have daily of these Zooms of various topics. Tomorrow is going to be the latest and greatest, the State of the Union from our co-founder, Sharpan. At the same time, the link for that is in the banner of the Facebook group. Make sure that you are there, because we're going to be announcing so many of the wonderful stuff that's been right under the surface that is going to be very practical in your implementation, in your experience of global exchange, and from there it will continue to get better and better. And of course, our communication is getting better day by day.
I would say, like, just to make sense of what Sal's saying, because I don't know if that's been stated. Maybe you're saying it because it has been stated. And chop this out, obviously this becomes, I guess, the global exchange question. When you register a VSA, there's still a GX user. They have to sign up Sal, and I'm a broker. I send Sal my link, and he's signing up as a free GX user. Then he changes his account from a user account to a business account once he signs in. And now he can purchase the VSA packages and then deploy his own client app. And he starts collecting all the users and his customer data. He's selling God knows what. All of that is inside of your brokerage network. So what Sal's trying to get at, we haven't even talked about why that's lucrative. I'm just saying that essentially any VSA you capture is as good as now capturing somebody who is going to expand your brokerage network to the degree that their business is going to explode. And that could be 3 VSAs that make up 1 million people, or 100 VSAs that make up 200 people. But the point that Sal's trying to make is that it's completely in your benefit, as they are still fundamentally within your brokerage network. I mean, if I was to draw a really crude and maybe not clear analogy, it'd be something like if you ever sold financial products. Like I have lots of experience I have an insurance practice, and a lot of people in insurance, I don't like, some people have takes on how they do it. We sell a lot of direct to consumer insurance. So we sell directly to the person buying it, but there's a tremendous amount of maybe smarter people than us that sell group insurance to companies. And so you can go, you land a company, let's say you land 6 McDonald's franchises, that's 30 employees per franchise, 180 employees, that's 180 policies. And so those are now going to pay you forever. And that's the equivalent of like a VSA. You can get one business, you don't know how much that's going to actually expand, because really they're just now building their own business. They're going to be very viciously aggressive about that. And you're going to be a benefactor and a contributor to their success, hopefully.
Well summarized, and hopefully that draws home the point and the practicality of all of the ideas and the lineage of the timings and the trends that have led to this, I think, next shift in being on the cutting edge and getting that same advantage that one got back in 2001, 2, 3 of having a large email list or having an email list at all. Nowadays, this may be exactly the forefront of a new era of providing these specialties to business owners or everyday entrepreneurs that can really brand themselves and build a global sales force and a sales agency, as well as a product base and a service base that can service the rest of the world. With that, we will conclude this very first of the Agency Podcast and catch you guys at the same time here tomorrow for the State of the Union, the latest and greatest with Sharpan and Sal. And make sure
make sure you grab all their questions. We didn't answer them, but I want to make videos with them. So just grab all those questions.
Okay. Sounds good.
I don't want to close the Zoom and like kick you out. That's why. Just copy the chat.
Okay. I got it. I got it. Okay. So with that, the recording for this will be up as well, so you guys can dive deep and actually review many of the concepts, and of course, more in-depth literature and videos of this will be coming out in the near future. I have the questions.
Amazing. All right. Thank you, guys. See you next time.